The Great Pyramid of Giza, sometimes called the Pyramid of Khufu or the Cheops Pyramid, is truly one of the greatest mysteries on Earth. It is huge, and it is built with gigantic stone blocks that seem nearly impossible to cut, transport, and assemble even today on such a massive scale as must have occurred long ago when this pyramid was originally constructed. Legends as to the origin of this and similar pyramids have grown, and some of these legends are now called history. But until now, no one on Earth really knew how these big structures were assembled at a time when tools were rudimentary. Camels and reed boats were the primary forms of transportation, and manual labor was the only means available to construct anything. In short, the legends, all of the legends, were built on total speculation. Authorities often connect all sorts of archaeological dots to weave a tale of who did what, where, and how, but quite honestly, they really do not know what happened back then. All the authorities have are ruins, and archaeological clues, however meticulously dug up, and from these they connect the dots that they select in a manner similar to how people see constellations by looking up at the sky and select stars that appear to outline all sorts of things, from the Big Dipper to Orion, the supernatural hunter. Depending on which dots or stars you select, you get different outlines and thus different legends. But the only thing that will resolve the mystery of the Great Pyramid of Giza is one or more eyewitnesses, something that, believe it or not, is entirely possible today. We can finally put the legends aside, at least for a moment, and take a look for ourselves. If you follow me through this presentation, I will show you data that will turn your world upside down. Data that were collected under impeccable scientific conditions and which, in theory, can be replicated, albeit with suitable training, care, and effort. This is cutting-edge science at its best. And what makes this even more fun is that many mainstream scientists are sitting this one out on the sidelines, caught in the trap of their own beliefs, just as many argued back in the old days that it was impossible to construct a machine that could fly, even long after the Wright brothers were flying their own inventions around quite regularly. This is as good as it gets. Let me briefly summarize just some of the key points of what I am about to show you. First, the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed using a combination of manual labor and high technology. The largest stone blocks that were used in the construction were floated about 18 inches over the ground using advanced technology while manual workers guided them into place. Second, the mining of the largest stone blocks was done using advanced energy-based cutting technology that literally melted the sides of the stones from the quarry walls to make them perfectly smooth. Third, at least some of the workers mining the largest stone blocks were genetically engineered to be able to work under the harsh conditions required for the job. Fourth, there was apparently some extraterrestrial involvement in overseeing the project. These extraterrestrials may have worked in a manipulative manner, either separately or secretly, from the human elite who ostensibly were controlling the project. Fifth, the Great Pyramid of Giza was only one part of a larger project that had the purpose of manipulating energy on a planetary level that had a communication purpose. It was not just a place to put a burial chamber. And finally, a separate group of extraterrestrials apparently arrived after the completion of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they intervened with the society, essentially dispelling some destructive ideas and sharing some knowledge. This led to a collapse of the original society, as a great exodus resulted when many of the masses left the area. I know all this may seem like a lot to absorb, but the data I am about to show you were collected under impeccable scientific conditions, and the data match the facts on the ground of what we see today. All I ask is that you stay with me. Look at the data yourself and then make up your own mind. I am Courtney Brown, and I am a scholar in the field of remote viewing, as it is performed using methods that were developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes, or methods that are derivative of those procedures. The military officially closed down its remote viewing program in November of 1995 when it became public, but few whom I know and trust doubt that they reopened it immediately in another, more deeply buried black project, a project which in all likelihood continues bigger and better than ever today. The military is filled with smart people, and they tend not to abandon things that work, even if they do not fully understand how they work. And as far as keeping things secret, well, that's what they do. Yet ours is not a military story, it is a civilian one that potentially surpasses anything that happened previously in or out of the military. The research that I am here to tell you about today was done at the Farsight Institute, the leading civilian, nonprofit, educational, and research hub for fully documented public scientific projects involving remote viewing as it is done using military or military-derived methodologies. Remote viewing is a mental process that allows highly trained individuals to accurately perceive what is called targets, which are places, events, and people across time and space. People who use these procedures are called remote viewers, and when they are really good, they can describe such things in great detail without being told anything in advance about what they are assigned to perceive, a condition known as working blind. Now, there are only a few highly trained remote viewers in the world today, and I have long argued that this does need to be addressed seriously in the near future. But a few highly skilled remote viewers do exist now, and they are capable of supplying perceptual data that are what some call scary good. I don't have the time today to go into much background regarding the science of remote viewing, but if you want more of that, I suggest that you go to the website for the Farsight Institute, where you can find a huge amount of material, including published, peer-reviewed scientific research. Don't let people who tell you something is impossible scare you away from learning something that is real. In late 2012, I initiated a new remote viewing project that was designed to answer the question of exactly how the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed. I wanted to know how the biggest rocks were mined and transported, and I wanted to know what the pyramid was used for. What was its original purpose? Regardless of how it was constructed, it clearly took a lot of effort to do it. And it must have had some important rationale motivating its builders. This was clearly going to be an historically important project to be undertaken at the Farsight Institute, so I enlisted the help of two gifted remote viewers who are among the best on the planet currently, Dick Allgaier and Daz Smith. They are both second-generation civilian remote viewers. Dick Allgaier uses a form of remote viewing known as the HRVG method for the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild that was taught to him by Glenn Wheaton, who came out of Special Forces Intelligence in the United States Army. Daz Smith uses a form of remote viewing known as CRV for controlled remote viewing. Now, that's a methodology that has long been used and taught by people such as Lynn Buchanan, who came out of the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the DIA. Both Dick Allgaier and Daz Smith have participated as remote viewers in many years of public research conducted at the Farsight Institute. They have extensive published and publicly verified track records in remote viewing under squeaky clean scientific experimental conditions. Much of their work in scientific experiments can be found on the website for the Farsight Institute and in peer-reviewed, published reports that are found in a variety of diverse venues. Indeed, scans of all of the original sessions for all Farsight projects, including the one I am discussing now, can be found on the Institute's website. Virtually all of our projects conducted at the Farsight Institute take a long time to complete. This project took approximately a year to finish. There were lots of remote viewing sessions, lots of targets for the remote viewers to examine, and there were also a large number of things that needed to be accomplished prior to initiating the remote viewing component of the project. Finally, there was a period needed to analyze and collect the data. Throughout the data collection period of the project, the viewers were kept totally blind to the nature of the project or any of the specific targets. They had no idea of what they were being assigned to remote view. They were only told via a non-leading email that there was a target and that they should remote view it and send in a session. They also did their work solo, which means that they were alone when remote viewing. Thus, there was no one present at the time they did their sessions who could have influenced the results. Well, after typically more than an hour of work for each session, the viewers each supplied between 10 and 20 pages of detailed written data, including sketches describing each target. There were also some sessions that were recorded live on video. Now, some of the video sessions are absolutely spellbindingly interesting, and I will show some of them to you shortly. Before discussing the remote viewing results, let's summarize what we already know about the Great Pyramid of Giza and why it is such an interesting mystery that seems to demand resolution. There are approximately 2.3 million blocks used in the construction of the pyramid, and the largest blocks are approximately 80 tons in weight. To leverage our efforts to obtain the maximum insight, we focused our attention on the most puzzling blocks, which are the largest, of course. It has been theorized that the Great Pyramid was constructed over a 20-year period. But if that is true, and assuming that technology was rudimentary back in those days, 800 tons of stone would need to have been moved into place each day to get a total of 5.9 million tons. That means that for 20 years, 12 blocks needed to be cut at a quarry, delivered to the construction site, and fully installed every hour of every 24-hour day. Moreover, this was not shoddy construction. The gaps between the rock surfaces are only 0.5 millimeters wide, which is 1/50th of an inch, and the base of the pyramid is perfectly flat and horizontal, varying from end to end only ½ an inch. The four sides of the square base are virtually the same length, varying only 58 millimeters. The sides are also aligned with the four cardinal compass points of north, south, east, and west, according to the true north that is aligned with the stars, not the magnetic north that wanders. And if that is not enough, if you divide the perimeter of the base by the height of the pyramid, you get the classic mathematical entity 2 pi, which historians argue was not even known back in those days. The stone used in the pyramid includes both limestone and granite, all mined from quarries. The largest blocks are granite. One of the most popular legends to appear in our contemporary scientific literature is that the Egyptians made cracks in the original rocks in the quarries and then hammered wooden wedges into those cracks. Then they soaked the wedges with water and caused the wood to expand and the rocks to crack further into usable shapes. Indeed, this may have been a traditional way of working with rocks in ancient times, but no one knows how to do that with the precision that was used for the Great Pyramid even today, So it is safe to say that the scientific authorities really do not know how the Egyptians actually cut up all those rocks, especially the really large granite stone blocks. Finally, the scientific authorities do not know why the Great Pyramid was constructed in the first place. They speculate that it was intended as a burial chamber, but it could be that there was another reason for the construction, or perhaps there were multiple reasons. We simply do not know. But it does seem reasonable to suggest that some type of burial thinking was going on when the construction process was underway, due mostly to the fact that a large rectangular granite sarcophagus, which is essentially a fancy stone box for a corpse, can be found in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and this sarcophagus appears to be slightly larger than any passageway leading to the king's chamber, which means that it must have been put there when the pyramid was originally constructed. But that does not mean that burial per se is the fundamental motivation for building the Great Pyramid. It just means that it may have been one of the elements of a perhaps much larger purpose or scheme. Now let's introduce exactly how we are going to resolve these mysteries by spending a minute talking about the targets that the remote viewers were assigned to perceive. A target is a place or event that constitutes the focus of attention for the remote viewers. Remember that the remote viewers do their work blind, and they are not told anything about the target when they remote view. Neither Dick Allgeier nor Daz Smith were told anything about any of the targets for this study until all of their remote viewing sessions were completed for this project. As we go through all of the data, note that the data obtained by Dick Allgeier and Daz Smith are very correspondent. All of the major elements match for both viewers, and none of the data from either viewer directly contradicts the data from the other. Beyond the obvious overlap between the data for the two viewers, they each individually added new elements as well, so that a more complete picture of what happened long ago is obtained by combining the data from both viewers. It is also useful to mention that neither Dick nor Daz communicated in any way at all during the remote viewing phase of this project, and they lived on opposite sides of the planet, Dick Allgeier in Hawaii and Daz Smith in the United Kingdom. To my knowledge, they have never been given a similar target, and both of them worked all of their remote viewing sessions totally blind. Once you see the data for yourself, if you think that this is totally amazing, welcome to the world of remote viewing, in which the viewers are fully trained and proficient and entirely capable of obtaining such data. By the way, it never stops being amazing, even to me. Now, the actual targets. There are 6 targets for this study. The first target tries to resolve how the biggest rocks used in the construction of the pyramid were mined. Did the ancient Egyptians use hammers and water-soaked wooden wedges, or did they use another more exotic process to cut those stone blocks from the sides of the quarries? Here's the exact wording of the target. The target is the mining of the largest rocks used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu, or alternatively the Cheops Pyramid. The viewer should perceive the location of the mining operation where the majority of the largest rocks were mined, and the process of mining the rocks. The date and time of the target should be that which is optimal for perceiving the mining process employed with respect to the largest rocks used in the construction of the pyramid. A picture of the pyramid is also part of the target definition, so there can be no ambiguity as to exactly what rocks and what pyramid the target is referring to. The second target for this study focuses on how the pyramid was actually constructed. We want to know how the largest stone blocks were moved into place during the construction. Were they simply pushed around by legions of slaves, or was there some other way of moving those heavy blocks? The third target for this project is how the completed pyramid is being used for its originally intended purpose. That is, once they built it, what did they use it for? Was it just a burial chamber, or was something bigger going on? The fourth target again focuses on the mining of the largest rocks used in the construction of the pyramid, so this is in essence a repeat of the first target for the project. But for this target, a photograph of the pyramid was not included in the target description. We wanted to see if the absence of the photograph might help the viewers focus on the actual mining activity without being distracted by the mental images of the pyramid itself. Remember that these remote viewers are really good, and if they see a Great Pyramid during their sessions, they will likely recognize it as a pyramid and start to describe it. But in this case, we don't want them to focus on the pyramid, but on the mining activity. So this restatement of the first target that focuses on the mining activity, but this time without the picture of the pyramid, was an experiment to see if this new version of the target might get us closer to the mining information that we desired. The fifth target for this project addresses how the largest blocks used in the construction of the pyramid were transported from the original mining location to the construction site for the pyramid. Those blocks appear to have come from the Aswan area of Egypt, and that was approximately 800 kilometers or 500 miles away. With only reed boats and camels, how could the people of that time have transported those large stone blocks such a long distance? The sixth and final target for the project is the subject or subjects who originally conceived of the idea of building the Great Pyramid of Giza in the first place. Thus, once we have figured out how they did it, we really want to know who organized it all, who was in charge, who was the mastermind or masterminds behind the entire project. Well, as you can see, we bit off a lot to chew with this project. No one would blame us if we came up empty-handed. These are complicated questions that have confounded the best experts for as long as anyone today remembers. In the days before remote viewing, and in the days before the existence of people with the level of trained capabilities as remote viewers who participated in this study, such a project would have been impossible. But today, it is possible. And, believe it or not, we now know the answers to all of the questions just raised, as you will soon see for yourself. We know who built the pyramid, how it was built, how the largest rocks were mined and transported, and why the pyramid was constructed in the first place. Moreover, the answers to these questions are more astounding than the questions themselves. If you are ready, let's dive into the results so that you can see the data for yourself and make up your own mind. Again, there were two types of remote viewing sessions done for this project. The first type was done the traditional way using pen and paper. But the second type was recorded on video live while the viewers were working on whiteboards. We will initially focus on the remote viewing sessions that were done using pen and paper. Then we will shift to the videos of the sessions that were recorded live using whiteboards, going back and forth between the original data recorded on paper and the video sessions. The video sessions are expansions of the viewer's original data that were recorded first using pen and paper. Thus, the video sessions really only make sense once you understand the data that were obtained first using the traditional method. Let's proceed in alphabetical order with the first collection of remote viewing data obtained by Dick Allgaier for the first target. Again, the target involves the mining of the largest stone blocks used in the construction of the Pyramid of Giza. How were they cut out of the quarry? Remember that the fourth target was essentially a restatement of the first target, so we can cut to the chase by combining the results for the first and fourth targets. In Dick Allgaier's original session for the first target, he records many images and verbal data involving rocks being crushed, cut, and pulverized with great force, apparently creating sheer cliffs. Great energy was apparently involved in this process, producing gaseous and shockwave byproducts. For the fourth target, addressing the same mining process, Dick produced 2 sessions. In the first, he perceives a great deal of construction activity. The workers appear to be slaves of some sort, where the elite, who act like high priests, just watch from a distance. He begins to perceive the shape of the pyramid, and he unambiguously and clearly draws the nearby Sphinx. Some kind of energy of dazzling beauty is being emitted from the pyramid structure as subjects look on. Some subjects at the target site are confined in small and crowded cages, and they are horribly treated. There is also some sense of human sacrifice and even cannibalism associated with the target activities. The viewer perceives some sort of high priest who conducts a sacrificial ceremony that reminds the viewer of a satanic ritual. The viewer also perceives and draws a subject who does not look human, a subject that he deems demonic and terrifying. Well, for the second session for this fourth target, the viewer clearly perceives mining activity. The mining activity involves the high-tech use of focused energy to fragment rock, leaving a crater. The viewer clearly describes this process in a time frame manner, as in snapshot after snapshot. Here is the original image that he draws. And he says this crater looks like one of the many sinkholes that were created in Nevada in years past during underground nuclear weapons tests. Then the viewer draws the time frames of the process of creating the crater. Now let's move through the frames one at a time. Here is the first time frame of the process. You have rocky land. In the second frame, focused energy is directed with pinpoint accuracy at a certain spot on the land. In the third frame, the land begins to give way, but not in a perfectly centered symmetrical manner. In the fourth frame, a chain reaction is clearly in process. Finally, in the fifth frame, we have the resulting crater. The viewer then writes that the focused energy that creates the crater is like an electron beam that produces what he calls a sizzle spark thwack that causes a chain reaction in the rock. He notes that this would scare birds even 10 miles away. He writes, "This is like watching a nuclear test at a Nevada test site when land shudders, domes, cracks, and collapses. But it is not the same. This is not a nuclear underground blast. I saw very focused, directed energy harmonics converge on one point from many directions and cause the earth-land rock to fuse, vibrate, collapse in the sense of pummeled by Thor's bolt. The term Thor's bolt comes to my head like the way scientists or creators would name this." Then the viewer notes that large numbers of subjects were associated with this target, and there is a sense of activity that is both scientific and shamanistic. Crystals are used in some manner. There is a tremendous display of energy that is witnessed by these many subjects. There is also the sense that the energy is connected to a grid or ley lines. Now let's look at a video that was recorded live while Dick Allgaier was doing one of his sessions for this target. Listen carefully to how he describes the mining activity that was used to obtain the largest rocks used to construct the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Radiating lines of energy, okay, so like pow, pow, all focused on a very precise point. So this is, and it's not, it's like focused beams, but it's not in the visual. You wouldn't see it physically, but I can see it remote viewing it. I can sense the energy coming in, and it's, I don't get a, is there a sound to it? It's a very high frequency. It's harmonic. Energy converges, integers, multiples of component frequency that rings like a bell. big Tesla, just intensely focused beams all converge and cause a reaction right here that radiates outward. I can't draw it right. Radiates outward. It's a compression. It comes in, converges, it becomes almost like a black hole and then radiates outward. And it's like when you watch a nuclear test from up above in the Nevada desert, and they show, you can see the land, and the land kind of burps and erupts and bubbles up for a second, and then it collapses down into itself and then radiates out. So it's this energy comes, it reacts, it comes up, and then it collapses down, and then it initiates a reaction, and it keeps radiating out. So here's the initial reaction after these beams of energy that are not visible, but they're frequency waves, not sound waves. There's something very compact and compressed. It happens and it affects the land. And then I just keep coming back to the Nevada test site where the land, you can just see that instant of a detonation underground, something, and it's not I don't think it's a nuclear detonation. It's way cleaner than that and different. It just, the land reacts, comes up ever so slightly, buckles, caves in like a fast-acting sinkhole. So the land kind of sinks and deflates, and as it deflates, it sets off other reactions where the rock cracks, and I think there's secondary fissures, and this happens. And this is just all within a very brief time span. I'm breaking this down. And then later, I feel a shock wave, and I'm over here, like 10 kilometers away. Birds can sense this. Animals, like I see a flock of birds. They're startled, and it's not something they hear or feel, but they sense it, and birds take flight and try to escape it. Animals would look up and be uneasy. So these effects, and this is miles and miles, kilometers away, off in the distance. I get this. I just see a flock of birds.
Well, so far this does not sound like a bunch of people chiseling rocks from a stone wall. Let's see what Daz Smith also witnessed for these two targets involving the mining process of those largest granite blocks. For the first target, Daz Smith produced 2 sessions. His first session is filled with perceptions of a great many subjects involved in working with what he calls large stone structures. The materials involved are multi-sided solid stone. The sloping sides of the structure being constructed are beginning to become apparent in his early sketches for this target. The viewer connects this target activity with the concept of a spiritual purpose, and even explicitly mentions parallels with the burning bush and 10 Commandments biblical stories. There is also a great deal of physical energy involved in the processes involved with this target. At least a few of the subjects involved in this process have advanced telepathic abilities that seem to connect them with something larger in the sense of the universe. Well, Daz's second session for this target, in that session he clearly perceives the pyramid shape of the large structure being constructed. The viewer interestingly perceives and clearly describes and sketches one door at the base of the pyramid structure that leads down, not up, which is an accurate description of the passageway that leads to the lowest chamber that is cut into the bedrock underlying the pyramid. The viewer states that the structure is made of stone, and that the construction process for this structure involves a great many humanoid subjects. The viewer does not sense resentment or oppression among the workforce, at least not at this point. Nonetheless, he notes that some of the workforce operates in deep pits in the presence of intense heat, fire, and burning. The viewer even explicitly connects the feeling of the target with the sense of the ancient Karnak temple complex. If you are surprised at how accurate these perceptions are, it is like I said earlier. These are among the best viewers on the planet currently, and this is the quality of the data you get when you work with the best. I hope each and every one of you watching this is now saying to yourselves that our world should have a great many more viewers with these trained capabilities. Well, for the fourth target, which is again a basic restatement of the first target addressing how the largest blocks of stone were mined, Daz Smith produced one session. In this session, the viewer absolutely unambiguously perceives the Great Pyramid of Giza in a state where it is being constructed. This is evidenced by the flat top of the pyramid structure drawn on various pages. The viewer also perceives energy in some form emanating from the target structure. This energy and the target structure seem to be associated with some type of spiritual activity, such as communicating with higher beings. There is also a sense of using the structure to transmit a message that states, "This is us. Look at us. This is who or what we are." The pyramid structure is located in a harsh and desolate desert, and the viewer perceives writing that he describes as hieroglyphics. There are many subjects gathered at the target, many coming from vast distances away in a sort of pilgrimage. There is also a religious feel to this activity. It should be clear at this point that it is not possible to fully restrict a remote viewer's perceptions to only that which is defined by the target. One of the reasons for beginning this project with the mining activity was hopefully to postpone the time when the viewer actually perceives the Great Pyramid. But the target description itself can only place the viewer's perceptions in a location and at a time. It cannot stop the viewer from noticing something that he or she may find interesting near or related to the target location. In this case, Daz Smith immediately noticed the Great Pyramid of Giza at a time when it was being constructed, which is entirely accurate with respect to the timing of the first target that addresses the mining activity. This is why we like to have multiple viewers for each project. You never know until all the data are in exactly what part of the target each viewer may perceive and describe, and you stand a better chance of getting a more complete picture of the entire situation if you have multiple eyeballs at the scene, so to speak. In this case, the data that we obtained from both Dick Allgeier and Daz Smith were entirely consistent with the given target and with each other, and the data seem to suggest unambiguously that simply using manual labor to construct a large burial chamber is not what the Great Pyramid mystery is all about. Let's now shift our attention to the next big question, which is, how was the Great Pyramid of Giza actually constructed? This moves us to the second target in the series. Beginning alphabetically again with Dick Allgeier's work, he did 2 sessions for this target. The first half of the first session is filled with many perceptions of repetitive mechanical processes working with rock. Great energy is involved in melting rock, as in artificial volcanism. There is mining on a large scale. Energy is used to cut rock, much in the manner that welding is done with metal, producing liquefied rock. The viewer explicitly describes what looks like high-tech alien mining. This description is accompanied by clear drawings of energy tools being used that focus energy on rock. The rock is both liquefied and vaporized, involving great heat and pressure, thereby separating the rock. There are also many life forms working on all of this. They have a hive mentality, working in large numbers underground. They feel like drones, and he describes them as not too smart. In Dick's second session for this target, he perceives drone-like humanoids who are genetically engineered to work under extremely harsh and polluting environments involving high-tech processes used for constructing large rock structures. The environment is like a foundry with toxic air quality. Everything is high-tech. Energy is used to melt rather than blast rock. Construction is on a massive scale, and large underground tunnel complexes are involved. The workers seem to be grown from fetuses in artificial environments by beings whom the viewer perceives as praying mantis in nature. Watch and listen to Dick Allgaier describe all of this with this session recorded live on video.
This is inside. This is more earthy. This is very dense right here. This is very enclosed, confining, claustrophobic. Well, it's big but claustrophobic at the same time. So it's a big cavernous place, but it's dim, it's dark, it's claustrophobic because you feel like deep underground. There's a almost, how can I draw this? Like a tunnel, okay? So you're going in this, okay, and these guys go in here. The sense of descending. This really feels like miners going into a mine, but they're not like miners. Like if you were miners going into the coal mine, you'd be carrying your lunch bucket, you'd be joking with your friends about the you know, what your girlfriend did last night and what you're going to do after work. You're going to go look at the game. None of that. There's none of that. These guys are just, and they're all the same size. They're like little clones of each other, clones. And genetically manipulated, genetic modification, and worker bees. Okay, so they're going down. It's a confining place, but it's big. There's like a big ceiling. And this is an environment that is really nasty, hot, gritty, acrid, bad smoke. If I was there, I would choke to death in an instant. And okay, I got to remember something about the face mask. I got to draw that next, but I can't do it when I'm in. Okay. There's a glow down in here. Like molten something, like very, like in a steel foundry, they have a slag heap that the molten stuff is there. It's sizzling and steaming and emitting noxious gases. This is a very unhealthy place. This is a bad environment, and they're bred to be here. They can handle it, but only for a little while, because they, it's like they've got a part of their DNA that allows them to slough off or absorb or somehow be in this environment, and they degrade, but not as fast. There's a degradation, so after a while they become useless. So they're programmed, and they come here, and it feels like mining or terraforming, building something deep underground that is, and it might involve mining, tunneling with fusing rock, melting it literally. And there's just evil gases here, but they can handle it, but only for a little while. And so it's not that they wear out, they just get defective. They will they'll just walk into the molten stuff, get close enough to it that they cease to function. And so the people in charge, it bothered them. How can we make them survive this longer But ultimately, they don't care because they can just make a new crop. They can just get rid of these and viscous. I can't spell when I'm viscous. Viscous? How do you spell that? Viscous. Thick. It's a greenish, it's a thick fluid. These are fetuses. There's a room full of these, man. Okay. These are it's like they don't have souls. They're just grown in a solution to be genetically engineered robots. And if they have a soul, it's a very primitive soul, like just enough to animate it, but not enough to give it aspirations and humanity. It would be like a way lower life form. Because this environment is so bad, there's a face mask thing, and they're just you know how a modern day firefighter, they have a breathing apparatus. They have a big mask they strap on, and it's got a big, and like this, and it's got a breathing filter and an air tank. It's like they've been able to, with nanotechnology, reduce that down to where it's almost like a saran wrap thing that can just go over the, it's like when they need to go there, this thing can just go, and it's form-fitting, right? And so it's like micro thin, but it has a eye protection aspect of it and a filtration, and allows them to survive in this environment longer. It's a very high-tech kind of mask, but they still go bad. They still go bad. You're kidding me. Oh, God. That's the caretaker. That's the overseer. Actually, it looks like Elephant Man. It's not Elephant Man. This is Praying Mantis Lady. Okay. Did I say that? This is not. These are eyes. This is not Elephant Man. This is Praying Mantis Lady, and she's actually has a kind of a, for how spooky looking this is, has a nurturing feel, like a female, almost motherly kind of feel. Not a startling, but not frightening. To her, we look like guppies. We're not scary, we're just different. Very intelligent, but caring in a certain way. Businesslike, but a nice, oh man. I gotta deal with this for a minute. Hang on. This is just very nicely, like how entertaining that you'd be looking at this, but move along. It's not your business.
Quite honestly, when I started this project, I had no idea that the answer to this mystery would be as amazing as some of the data that Dick provided in his sessions for this second target. I truthfully expected something more mundane. Thus, when I get sessions from a great viewer like Dick Algar that are like what we just saw, I like to see what another similarly great viewer does with the same target. Daz Smith also did 2 sessions for this target involving how the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed. In his first session for this target, Daz perceives heavy manual work. There is a spiritual element to this work that the viewer describes as a connection to God. Subjects are guiding the movement of large multi-sided stone components. Daz clearly describes and sketches the pyramid geometry of the large structure being constructed. The heavy stones used in the construction are being moved via a levitating technology. Workers are pushing and pulling the solid stones to guide their movement, while levitating technology is simultaneously being used to lift the stones. The levitating process produces no loud noise, or at most a hum, but there is a visible wavy byproduct, like heat would produce over a paved road on a hot summer day. This levitating process is both an electrical and mechanical process, and the stones are lifted approximately 18 inches to 2 feet above the base surface using this technology. Daz reports all of this is going on in the past, and it involves advanced technology. Many workers are moving these stone parts into place, and the workers seem to be male. Daz reports the perception of hieroglyphics also. The target pyramid is unambiguously drawn in detail on one page of his session, and the viewer also describes the sandy, dry environment of the target structure. Now, Daz's second session for this target has more general impressions of a large structure that is being constructed. This takes place in the past, and there is a spiritual element to the process. Machinery is involved, including mechanical elements with gears and other moving parts. Well, as you can see, this project began to move in an entirely different direction from what I was originally expecting. Both viewers were perceiving the use of some advanced technology, more advanced than we have today. Moreover, in all of my years working with these viewers, I have never given them a similar set of targets, and their data have consistently been amazingly accurate. So, at this point in this project, I simply decided to abandon all preconceived notions of what may or may not have happened long ago when the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed, and simply to look at all of the remaining remote viewing sessions with absolutely no expectations at all. And I am glad I did that, because I was in for a surprise. Now let's move to the third target in the series and find out how the fully completed Great Pyramid of Giza was used for its originally intended purpose. That is, let's find out why the people who built this thing actually built this thing. However they built it, and even if they used advanced technology to cut the stones and move them into place, it still was a major effort of construction for a structure that is essentially solid rock. I mean, there isn't a lot of room space in the pyramid, so the builders were obviously not using it for simple shelter from the elements. So why did they build it? That really is the million-dollar question. Beginning with Dick Allgaier, he conducted 2 sessions for this target that focuses on how the Great Pyramid of Giza was used for its original purpose. In his first session, the viewer describes both verbally and with detailed sketches a collection of pyramid-shaped structures that are separated by long distances yet connected with energy. The connection between the various structures appears to follow some type of energy pathway, or what is sometimes called ley lines. That is, the various pyramid structures themselves appear to be connected energetically. The energy connecting the structures seems to be, at least in part, electromagnetic in nature. There is the sense of earth frequencies. The energy moves through the earth, and it is either not natural or it is being harnessed and controlled. The viewer clearly draws the pyramidal structure of the target, accurately noting that the structure extends underground as well. The energy that connects the various pyramidal structures appears to run in straight lines. The viewer then draws in detail a collection of pyramids that seem to be closely spaced, and explicitly states that this large, complex, and beautiful symmetry reminds him of the pyramids when they were alive, here referring to the pyramids in Giza. Near the end of the session, the viewer describes both verbally and with sketches subjects participating in the flow of energy related to the target structure. The viewer writes, "Bright light, energy, like a half-mile-high Tesla coil." This looked like a light show at a rock concert, but seemed like many people watching the Northern Lights. But the energy spectacle is closer, awe-inspiring. At the very end of the session, the viewer shifts his perception to the inside of a tunnel that is geometrically shaped on the inside. He had the sense of a particle supercollider tunnel. Now, watch as Dick Allgaier describes live on video his perceptions of the Great Pyramid of Giza as it is being used for its originally intended purpose.
And looking at land 1, what predominates, I mean, there is land there, but I see a structure, and I see a pyramid. It actually got a sharper angle than that, and I feel that it extends underground a bit. So here's the ground, and here's the and this is beautiful. This is this top is almost shimmering, or as if energy is. The whole thing seems to radiate energy. It's not dark stone like the pyramids. It's beautiful, but it's metallic. It's not. It doesn't seem to be stone. It radiates as if it was metal. Very shiny, glistening, high-tech type of thing. Since almost a grid pattern with something up here that's bright like a capstone, like a reflective. And the land, I see some people, very small here. Land is not jumping out at me. So my first land gestalt is the energy is radio frequency, RF energy. So there's a beatific light energy, and there's also, this is emanating some type of RF. There's a very charged feeling to this. Charged, the right word? Active, alive, oral, almost an oral energy around this. So that's my land one that is dominated by this structure, which, you know, I gotta say it seems pyramidal, like a pyramid. Okay, I'm gonna try to take a wider look at land now because I was so focused in on that. So this is gonna be Blackboard Land 2. So again, these structural shapes, like a complex of structures, and there's, let me look at this. I get a very, I don't think this is actually visible to the naked eye in the visible spectrum so much. It's not like a furrow in the land or a you know, a painted line or a road or a rut, but it's more like these are lines of energy. The word ley lines, you know, like magnetic, some grid of energy that is connected to these structures and is associated with the land. Earth frequencies. You know, okay, frequencies of the earth, they resonate. Earth frequencies resonate. Earth frequencies. But they're visible to me when I look on Blackboard as an energy pattern. And there's a very strong one, like here. This is out of line, but it bisects. These are here to bisect this. I didn't draw that right, but there's a magnetic earth frequencies resonance, energies resonant that's on a line there. So that is land 2, again dominated by structures, but energy grids. I don't know if they're harnessed. Are they, let's see if they're tapping it or creating it. Tapping it. So I would say these points here are not generating, they're tapping. This is like the Northern Lights, okay? It's not the Northern Lights, but it's like, it has that, if you looked at the Northern Lights and sped it up and amplified it 50 times in the sky, everybody's looking up, it's beautiful, it's radiant, and it's, it seems like a light show at a rock concert, like the Grateful Dead light show, but this doesn't, it's not mechanically generated. It's like a, you know those, like a Tesla, what do they call it, a Tesla coil? Or that, they have those things that you, the energy is out like spider webs and you touch the ball, you know, and it'll touch your finger and the energy goes to it. That's what this is like, only you're in these people and this is up in the sky. Very beautiful light show.
Dick Allgire's second session for this target has two themes. The first is the sense of large and well-constructed underground chambers that are connected with tunnels. The second theme is the idea of native people on the surface, that is not underground, involved in agricultural pursuits. Before making any conclusions, let us also look at the sessions by Daz Smith for this target, focusing on how the fully completed Great Pyramid of Giza was used for its originally intended purpose. Daz did one session for this target, and in that session he noted that the structure's placement on land is key to this target. Life, land, and structure are working as one for some intended purpose or goal. He perceives the massive angular structure that was a monumental and long undertaking. Daz notes that the result of constructing this structure will involve some manipulation of the environment. He accurately describes the structure as having sloped sides. There is also some kind of walkway or ramp to the structure, which is an accurate description for the original layout of the structure. Then, Daz states that the purpose of the structure is to assist in the communication with God or higher beings. Crucially, the building of the structure is perceived to be as important as the resulting finished structure. Daz clearly notes in his session that whatever the original purpose of the structure, its original purpose seems now to be lost somehow. Daz clearly draws the pyramidal shape of the structure that is constructed with large blocks, observing that when finished it is gleaming and white. Again and again he draws the pyramidal shape of the multi-layered structure. Well, it clearly seems that the original purpose of the Great Pyramid of Giza was not simply to serve as a burial chamber. Something active was going on. Somehow, the pyramid was part of an effort to channel energy, perhaps planetary energy, and to use this energy for some spiritually related purpose. Moreover, this energy was apparently quite real, not an imaginary thing. Given the effort required to build the Great Pyramid of Giza and the other connecting pyramids located on Giza and elsewhere on the planet, one can only assume that those who organized this effort knew something real about how to use the available energy for some kind of communication purpose, something that we may not yet know about or understand. But let's take this one step at a time. We have lots more data to go through. In fact, let's backtrack to examine something real and practical, which is how the builders managed to transport those big stone blocks from the quarry where they were originally mined to the construction site on Giza, approximately 800 kilometers or 500 miles away. This brings us to our fifth target for this series. Specifically, the target is the transportation of the largest rocks used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Beginning with Dick Allgire, he conducted two sessions for this target. In his first session, he describes a great many people collectively working with stone. The people are densely packed in their work environment. Dick clearly describes the solid stone blocks at the target site and the masses gathered together near those blocks in a scene that reminds the viewer of an old city central plaza. There is an elevated energy event that is witnessed by many subjects. Then, in his second session for this target, the viewer describes something that moves through the air and seems to impact the ground at some point. Now, Daz Smith also did two sessions for this target. In his first session, Daz describes an indigenous society from the ancient past that is based on slaves and masters. Yet there is great social change in progress, with some new subjects arriving from far away in vehicles or ships with new knowledge, new ideas, new medical knowledge, and new technology. An old system of beliefs falls away among the indigenous subjects, and subjects depart from the area with their families in large numbers. All this change happens over a decade or two. The newly arrived subjects are enlightened travelers and explorers, and they are the ones who start this new golden age in a short period of time. The primary location perceived by this viewer is an ancient city with temples. The viewer describes the basic physical layout of the pyramid's internal structure as well as the arrangement with another pyramid situated in a wide landscape. Some of the structures have extensive construction underground. Let's closely watch Daz in a session recorded live as he explores his perceptions of this target.
It feels very laborious. It's labor. It's hard. It's taking a lot of time and manpower. Working in groups that have overseers. So the groups are smaller, intense, and they know each other. With a tiered structure, there feels like a dominant element with others underneath. And then these feel like they work harder, as always, I suppose. Almost like a slave-master relationship. Okay, and I feel like there's a belief, a strong belief, religious feel to the life, and that feels like it's part of the reason behind their drive and their purpose and everything they do. Or everything I feel that they're doing within this target, including the building of the structures, stems from a solid purpose and belief. But I do feel that there's a problem here. And it feels like an outside force shatters that belief. Changes it forever. And this feels like it's an outside influence of other life forms. It's hard to put my finger on. I want to say travelers. It feels like life that has travelled. And brought new ideas and knowledge. So there's definitely a society. It looks like it has a couple of structures to it. Some with more knowledge above a lower structure, a bit like a slave-master relationship, as we have nowadays to some degree. The slaves seem to be working harder, working manually, but there doesn't seem to be any massive discontent there. Both parts of this structure seem to be belief driven. There's a real purpose behind what they're doing, and what they're doing is also leading to structures or components being built and moved, rising structures. But I do see that a problem occurs, which feels like it's an outside force which really shakes and shatters their beliefs, changes them completely from then onwards. And I think that this outside influence feels like it's from another bunch of life forms that I would class as travellers. They travelled a long way, they felt like they've come a long way, and then they impart knowledge, new ideas, which changes the way of life of this previous group. Okay, so yeah, an outside interruption in this society, and from what looked like predominantly male life forms, they travel a long distance in vehicles which feel like I have to name them ships. Their intent was mainly peaceful. They didn't intend any harm at all, but I think that just their interaction alone did cause some harm, but I don't think it was violent harm. But they had the power to use violence if they needed to. I feel they may have done, but I don't think that was the whole problem of the interaction. What they did do though, they did share knowledge and ideas, which did open the eyes and change the patterns and the social makeup of the indigenous people in some way. May have even stopped them building, because I have a feeling that this had an effect on these rising structures. There's a connection between the information transfer, or the knowledge that was given over, and the rising structures, or the structures that were a big part of the indigenous life at the time, a big part of what they were doing, their ideas, their philosophy, their whole belief system. So yeah, a big outside influence here from someone from far away that travelled a vast distance.
In his second session for this target, Daz Smith describes artificially created energy involved in moving objects. The energy is frequency-based, possibly involving sound. It seems to resemble magnetism in the sense of its effect on objects. The viewer clearly describes subjects moving large rectangular blocks. Part of the movement appears to lift the blocks off of the surface such that they float while the subjects guide them into place. Thus, the subjects are not lifting the large blocks. Something else is doing that, but the subjects are guiding the blocks that appear to be floating in mid-air. The viewer describes how the large blocks are moved up ramps while being assisted by energy. It is a combination of both low and high tech. Because of the energy that lifts the blocks, moving them is not difficult. Daz notes that it is as if the blocks are sitting on a cushion of air. Many of these perceptions were recorded live in riveting detail.
Okay, yeah, so there's definitely something solid. It feels blocky. So it's solid. Feels man-made or manipulated. Positioned. Very strange the energy. This feels like there's an energy involved. So I'm going to do it like this, because it's how it feels. So it's an energy. And it feels buffered. Or it feels like it's buffering. Almost like wind, but with an element of sound. I can hear a hum, a deep, low noise. Not annoying, but there's a noise there and it's everywhere. So yeah, solid object, solid. Blocky. These feel moved. I want to say pushed by life, manipulated. but pushed isn't right. More like assisted into position. Yeah, there's more than one. There's groups of these guys, and some maybe even pulling. Yeah, so it feels like, definitely feels like there's quite big, solid, heavy man-made structures or objects here, and they feel like they're being assisted into position, almost like pushed and pulled, but that doesn't feel like, the pushing and pulling doesn't feel like it's the only or primary source here. There's this energy, and I can't exactly tell where this is coming from at the moment, but it feels like it's everywhere around the life and the structures. And this feels like it's buffering and blowing, and it kind of has this cyclic, repeating but powerful motion. It buffers all around, dissipates outwards slightly, and it does feel like it's creating some kind of buffered motion, almost like I want to say it, you know, I'll have to AOL this of hovercraft at this stage, because it kind of feels like it has that kind of motion where it kind of like pushes up and outwards, yeah, in a skirt type of effect, pushes up and out, and it just feels like there's something here above it. So yeah, almost like a heavy solid object on a cushion of energy, buffered air, energy, noise, all one kind of mechanism really. So it feels like, hard to describe, it feels like something coming up and around and then up again, moving up and around and being manipulated. This is definitely structures. This is definitely solid, heavy. Man-made structures. I'm gonna have to AOL blocks. These feel like they're being assisted and manipulated into place, rising, up and around, rising, as part of some grand structure. And I feel like they're being placed, being moved, positioned, placed. Some of it's manual labour, but it does feel assisted by some kind of, I want to say sound energy. But I'm not sure sound is the right word. I mean, sound is involved in this, but it's not wholly sound on its own. It's almost like a sound plus. Yeah, so they start off lower, they're moving up and around a structure and up, almost like on a platform. Assisted movement on a platform, up and around a structure into place. So I get this stage of detail here. So I'm going to slide and describe more detail. Okay, definite block feel here. Feels heavy, solid, and there are men or males. There's more than one. They're at all sides of this thing. There's a motion. So there are males and they're moving or helping a structure be positioned. Now this motion feels it's fluid. Now there is a manual element to this, but this doesn't feel strength based. It feels more like positioning. So not strength based. I don't want to say wholly on this though, because there is this interaction. There is this sound interaction. This buffered, yeah, buffering. So we have the solid here, and we have this buffering, and it's pushing against, and it pushes back down. But it's very strange because it's all cyclic at the same time, all repeating. I can't quite describe it. I've never felt anything like it before. I want to say magnetic, but it's not magnetic, but it's got a push and a pull. And it's loud and penetrating. There's a hum that just feels like it goes right into your bones. Yeah, so it's pushing, moving this. Pushing and moving this structure into place here. Very solid, very solid structures, and they all seem regular actually, regular shaped. And it does. I hate to say it, but it does feel quite blocky, like blocks. You know, proper three-dimensional objects here that are just being pushed, pulled, manipulated into place. I want to say floated and fluidly, because everything feels fluid. It doesn't feel like there's jerky motions. And it feels like the males are there more as guidance and manipulation. They're almost like guiding and moving, making sure it doesn't slide off. Maybe there's a tendency for it to slide off. I feel that it could slide off to the if you're behind the stone, or I say stone, if you're behind the object here. So there's definitely life involved. These feel male, more than one, working in groups. They assist each other. Definitely a team style relationship. And there are multiple groups. This feels past because they just feel clothed, basically. Basic clothing. Dark skin. And yeah, they seem to be involved with objects which feel blocky and solid and heavy. And it feels like they're moving these. So, you know, we have a 3D block here that feels like it's being moved, pushed and pulled. And this feels like it's been moved into place into some grander, larger structure, and it feels like this is a big plan. This is a big plan thing that's going on here, and yeah, they're coming up and around, and it feels like a huge, big rising. I don't know if I got the angle right here. It might not be out rising this much. It feels like something's rising, but there's also a platform running outside, and these life are moving blocks. They're here, you know, manipulating moving blocks, and there's another block here, and there's these guys moving it. I don't want to say sliding it. Moving these blocks upwards. Up a structure, and you know they come up one part, and then they go around a straight edge corner, and they come up another one, and there's another straight edge corner here, and all the time they're moving along and up a gradient. It's raised. the raised surface. Yeah. Blocks. Just keep seeing blocks moving. And there's men, they are kind of hands-on. They're like pushing, moving, and there's more than one. It feels like about 6 to 8, maybe no, 4 to 8 per block, but depending on the blocks. Some of the blocks there's different sizes, so some of them are huge, and some of them, I don't know, they have a different shape, a different edge. That's not a very good sketch. I can't draw it. Yeah, they feel like they have an edge or a lip to it, an extra edge or a lip to them. Maybe a corner, maybe it's a corner part or something. Life forms, probably male, probably from the past. They feel like they're working with man-made, moved, naturally carved or naturally made large heavy structures, and they feel like they're moving them into position, moving them into place over a distance. Part of this is done with labour, but part of it's done with an energy which feels like it's a buffering cyclic energy, very slidey, a bit of noise involved, which feels like it comes from a technology, an advanced technology, I would say. Maybe even foreign. It doesn't feel like it belongs to the people that are using it. They don't feel like the ones moving the blocks here don't feel like they know too much about this stuff that's happening. They're just using it.
The sessions for this target, completed by both Dick Allgaier and Daz Smith, clearly indicate that these large blocks were not moved through simple physical effort. The blocks moved through air, and energy of some type was used to move them. The idea that these large blocks were transported on, say, reed boats from the Aswan area can now be discarded. Given the size and weight of those stone blocks, that was quite a stretch of an idea in the first place. There are numerous forms of levitation that are known to us today. Some high-speed trains use magnetic levitation to keep them from touching any surface when moving from place to place. There is also a form of acoustic levitation that uses sound waves to lift objects. Obviously, our use of such technologies is in its infancy, but we know enough now to understand that in principle, it is possible to float objects in mid-air in order to move them. However the levitation was accomplished, it appears that this process resolves a major mystery about how the large stone blocks were moved from one place to another. Advanced technology was used to lift these objects, and human physical efforts were limited to simply guiding the large floating blocks into place. Now let's move to the last target for this series. For this target, the viewers are to focus on the subject or subjects who originally conceived of the idea of building the Great Pyramid of Giza at the time when this subject or subjects were conceiving of the idea and planning to develop the project. The target also specifies that the viewers should perceive and describe the location of the subject or subjects when they are conceiving of this idea. The viewers should also observe the thoughts of the subjects so as to understand the reasons for building the Great Pyramid of Giza. Let's see what our viewers found out. Dick Allgaier did one session for this target. He finds that an important and powerful male subject is dying. The subject is located in a large and ornate structure. The subject has some type of head disease or injury, possibly a brain tumor. The subject is resigned to his fate, but he wants to leave some kind of legacy. He wheezes with a raspy voice. There is also a pretty female who is very loyal to the dying male. Also, there is a male in his 30s who is essentially a loner who uses people. This subject has bad teeth, has a criminal mentality, plots, steals, and quite bluntly is threatening. There is a fourth subject who is male and somewhat overweight. Now this person wants to control the situation. He wears nice clothes and cologne and is distrustful of others. There is an unhealthy plot underway. Someone could get murdered. Intense and difficult negotiations are underway. The negotiations seem to involve the control or release of information. There also seems to be some sort of advanced computer technology associated with this target. The technology seems to involve the storage of huge quantities of information. Now, Daz Smith also did one paper and pen session for this target, and he perceives the situation with a bit of a wide-angle lens, so to speak. He describes subjects and their social order. There is a hive mentality with something like a caste social system. The social order is rigid, top-down, hierarchical, and tightly controlled. There is the sense of a leader, like a king. This leader has the responsibility to get something done, and he issues orders to get it done. The leader is very serious and determined. There is a setting that seems like the court of a king, with 2 males and 1 female on an elevated platform, and lower-level subjects in front of the elevated platform. This is an ornate setting with some pomp and the sense of ceremonial activities. There is a huge construction project being planned and executed. Lots of subjects are involved. There is a need to rally support for the project. The physical work is backbreaking. The workers feel like slaves, but they are not bound in chains. There is a caste system where the workers are subservient. The workers take orders and are very hard working. They do not know why they are doing what they are doing. They just do it because they are ordered to do it. Many subjects are relocated, and they are placed in temporary homes. There is the sense of advanced technology being employed for this project. Well, both of these remote viewers give us great insight into the leadership structure of the society that designed the Pyramid of Giza. We also learn more about the social structure, which, quite honestly, does not seem too pleasant from the perspective of the masses. Clearly, an elite group was exerting great efforts to control and exploit the masses, or at least a large workforce. And, as seemed typical, even today, among such elite groups, there was internal intrigue. So there you have it. The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed using a complex mix of manual labor and advanced technology. The construction may have been manipulated or assisted by some extraterrestrials who seem to have worked behind the scenes. There was also plenty of human drama and intrigue involved, more so than is contained in any Hollywood movie about that time. And it is not clear how much the humans were aware of the extent of extraterrestrial involvement in their plans and activities. Some of it would have been hard to miss, of course, such as technology that levitated stone blocks. But there is no evidence in these data that suggests that the humans themselves of that day had developed the level of technology to do this, nor the technology to clone workers who could survive the harsh mining environments. It also looks like the drama was interrupted at some point, apparently after the Great Pyramid was fully constructed. What interrupted it was the arrival of highly advanced beings from far away traveling in ships. I can only assume that we are talking about other advanced extraterrestrial beings, ones that had an entirely different agenda than the extraterrestrials who had been involved with the pyramid construction project in the first place. The appearance of these newcomers disrupts the society, and the masses depart over the period of a few years. It goes without saying that I wonder if this is a more accurate description of what happened long ago with the so-called exodus of Israelites from Egypt. The biblical story does in fact say that the Israelites were essentially a slave labor group in Egypt involved in the construction of the pyramids, and that they left after intervention from God. Would the people of that day have interpreted advanced extraterrestrial activities as originating from God? It certainly seems possible, and I must admit that I am intrigued by the parallels between the biblical stories and what we have seen in these remote viewing sessions. Yes, we have found many answers to old mysteries with this project, but we also have many questions, some of which are new. Now we can question everything that we thought we might have known related to that period. For example, it makes me wonder if Moses actually did go up to the mountain to obtain the 10 Commandments, exactly who did he encounter up there? Was it God or an extraterrestrial with a light show? And would someone like Moses have been able to tell the difference? Makes me wonder how much manipulation has actually happened over the past millennia, and how much was with good intentions and how much was self-serving. We just do not know all of the answers to these questions, but we do have the ability to begin getting some of the answers. Stay tuned. There are more remote viewing projects in the works at the Farsight Institute. Keep an open mind. It is something we will all need. I am Courtney Brown, Director of the Farsight Institute.